Welcome back everyone to Racing Reviews. Today we will be continuing our look back through the Formula 1 2020 season, and today's topic of conversation, of course, it's Racing Point Formula 1 team. And I think it's safe to say the 2020 season for Racing Point was a little bit all over the place, starting the year in controversy. A car that was very similar to last year's Mercedes W10, a little FIA investigation saw the team with a hefty fine and a 15-point Constructors' Championship points deduction. Big penalties for the team fighting for that best of the rest title over the course of this year. However, that didn't stop the team from pulling out some awesome performances this season. The first ever victory for Racing Point Formula 1 team, Sergio Perez claiming his first victory at the Sakhir Grand Prix, the team's first pole position at the Turkish Grand Prix, Lance Stroll taking his first pole position, also with a podium for Stroll in Sakhir, a podium for Perez in Turkey, and a podium for Stroll in Monza. An incredible season for the team. Sadly though, despite these mega results, they weren't quite able to topple McLaren, finishing the season in a respectable 4th place in the Constructors' standings. 7 points off McLaren though. Without that points deduction at the start of the year, thanks to that FIA investigation, they would have been 3rd. However, without that car, would they have been 3rd? I'm not too sure. I'll leave that to you boys and girls to debate in the comment section down below. They were comfortably in front of Renault though, 14 points, a team they were battling so hard with over the last few years in Formula 1. I think 4th is a very good job for Racing Point. In front of Ferrari, in front of Renault, in front of AlphaTauri, the team can be very proud of the work they've done. And actually, as the team now starts its rebranding process into Aston Martin Formula 1 team, so excited to see them on the grid this season. They've got a really solid grounding to work from. All of that work done in the 1990s with Eddie Jordan and the Jordan team, moving through Midland, Spiker, Force India, Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. Really looking forward to seeing what they can do next year. However, the big change for them isn't just the name. They're losing Sergio Perez. They're bringing in Sebastian Vettel. That storyline is going to be so fascinating. Can Sergio respond at Red Bull? Can Sebastian Vettel refine that form we saw at Red Bull and the early Ferrari days? We're just going to have to wait and see. So then, back to this year. Back to our tier lists. Of course, if you've been keeping up with the series so far, what we do is we analyse the team, whack it in a tier list, and then we go through each of the team's drivers and put them in a tier list at the end of the video. So stick with us to see that a little bit later on. But Racing Point, so far we've put McLaren and AlphaTauri in great. I feel McLaren getting 3rd, a big result for them. AlphaTauri picking up their first victory, but also I felt AlphaTauri had the best developed car over the course of the season. With that in mind, I'm putting Racing Point in good. I feel a little bit mixed with this one. I don't know, I'd love to know your thoughts because they picked up that first victory. So many podiums, a pole position. However, the fact that this car was so similar to that Mercedes of last year, the fact that they did get fined, the fact that they did lose 15 points, I feel it's a little bit unfair on the likes of McLaren, on the likes of AlphaTauri to put Racing Point in the great category. When I look at other teams, I feel like it was going to be a little bit top heavy with too many teams in great, so Racing Point have missed out. It's certainly closer to great than it is average. No way was this year an average season for Racing Point, but very close to great. But I'm putting them in good. Before I get in too much trouble, let's move over then to our driver head-to-head, Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll. Not too dominant from Sergio Perez, but certainly had the edge over his less experienced teammate. 10-4 in the qualifying battle, though Stroll did a much better job this season and of course got pole position at the Turkish Grand Prix. Sergio's best, a 3rd place at the same race. Average qualifying, Sergio had the edge, 7.06, but Lance, again, much better in 2020. That was his real struggling point in 2019. 8.6 is average qualifying this year, a massive improvement for the Canadian driver. The race head-to-head, 8 to Checo, 5 to Lance. Pretty close, I would say, though of course that statistic is all over the place in terms of driver retirements, in terms of COVID, that both drivers had to miss Grand Prix. The points though is where it counts, is where it matters. 125 to Sergio Perez, 4th in the driver's standings. Lance Stroll a little bit further back, 50 points off his teammate at the end of the season, 11th in the driver's standings, 75 points to his name. I still think that's okay, and we're going to go through Lance's season in a moment's time. Of course, we went through best qualifying and best race finish, of course, Sergio Perez with that victory at the Sakhir Grand Prix, and 2 third-place finishes for Lance Stroll, 1 in Sakhir and 1 in Monza. But just before we get on to Lance, let's talk about Sergio. I really want to talk about Sergio. It's one of the drivers I was so looking forward to talking about when I was building up to this series. Because what a mega season. What more could this man have done? Dragging that car to some ridiculous results. Yes, he got that victory. Yes, he managed to pick up that 2nd place in Turkey. But Imola, he should have been on the podium. Bahrain, he should have been on the podium. Austria, he was so close to the podium. One of just 4 drivers over the course of this season that scored points in every single race they finished. Lewis Hamilton did it, Max Verstappen did it, Sergio Perez did it, and 1 other driver did it. Can you tell me who it is in the comment section down below? But we might find out in a minute's time, is a bit of a clue for you. But Sergio was mega this year. Super consistent, super reliable, and overall was mega quick over the course of this season. Great in qualifying, fantastic in the Grand Prix. I kind of run out of superlatives for Sergio Perez this year, a driver that often goes so much under the radar. The fact he was under so much pressure to perform this year, to be booted out of a team that he has had such a major role in building what they are today, to bounce back, to prove to Formula 1 he deserves to be on the grid, to prove to Red Bull to ditch their ideals of driver promotion from Toro Rosso or AlphaTauri, to force them to sign him, I think is proof enough of the mega season Sergio Perez has had this year. Lance Stroll, I think, has had a really good season as well. There was a time where this man was 4th in the driver's standings, had scored points at every single race he finished, all the way up to Monza. Scored that podium, was looking on to be a magical season, riding 4th in Mugello, but that car failure, with a couple of laps to go, a DNF, followed 3 more DNFs. But I think that stage of the season, where a lot of people will point out he wasn't good enough, that's where he needs to improve, I think it's actually a little bit unfair. Because Mugello, that was the car's fault. Sochi, he got taken out on lap 1 by Charles Leclerc. Not his fault. Germany, he missed with COVID. Portugal, only a week later, he returned. He had a terrible weekend. However, I think returning after you just had COVID to get back in the car at all, fighting for points, I think respectable. After that, Imola had a difficult weekend, then straight back on it at the Turkish Grand Prix. Pole position, was so unlucky to be out of the podium that particular day. Should have been in the fight for victory. With hindsight, he shouldn't have made that extra stop, but the team didn't know that at the time. So I feel that 9th place in Turkey, again, certainly wasn't Lance's fault. Didn't finish in Bahrain, thanks to contact with Kvyat on that 2nd restart. 3rd place in Sakhir, 10th place at Abu Dhabi. I think it's a really solid season for Lance Stroll, and I think next year we'll go into the team as a much better driver, and I think we'll push Sebastian Vettel a little bit more than people think. But just before we jump into our tier list, there's one more driver we need to talk about, and it's that 4th driver that scored points in every single race they finished, Nico Hulkenberg. A 7th place at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, an 8th place at the German Grand Prix, the Eiffel Grand Prix, whatever you want to call it. I think this man thoroughly deserves a seat on the Formula 1 grid. I think Hulkenberg is so underrated. Get him in a car, somebody. I hope he can return at some point over the course of 2021. 3rd on the grid at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, came in at the last minute in Germany, qualified 20th, dead last, fought his way back to 8th. That is nuts for a driver that had no experience within that car. I want him back, ladies and gentlemen. So as we move over to our thoughts, to our tier list for the Formula 1 2020 season, so far we have Danny Kvyat in average, the two McLaren boys, Norris and Sainz in good, and our highest driver rating so far, Pierre Gasly in great. But for our 3 Racing Point boys, I have gone with this, Sergio Perez, our first driver to reach legendary status in 2020, fighting for his career to bounce back in the manner he did, missing 2 races through COVID, winning his first Grand Prix, 4th in the drivers' standings, a mega season from Checo. Hulkenberg, I've put him in great. I'm toying with putting him in good, but the drives he had, the experience he had to finish in the points in both races he took place in, 3rd on the grid, great season. When he was on show, he performed, he delivered, awesome job from Nico Hulkenberg. And Lance Stroll, I've put him alongside the 2 McLaren boys. I think he had a good season. I can't put it in great because he did finish outside the top 10. He was 50 points off Sergio Perez, but I do think he was very unlucky this year. Not as good as the 2 McLaren boys, so good sits right for me. So legendary, great, and good for our Racing Point drivers. And that is it today for your review of Racing Point. I'll be back tomorrow for your review of the Mercedes Formula 1 team. Looking forward to that one. I hope you can join me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.